In this video, I'll show you how to implement a basic React style agent using LangGraph. And the agent that we're building is going to be able to write physics research papers, or at least that's the plan. And in order to do that, I've given it a few tools that it's going to be able to use. So we'll see how good of a job it can do, and we'll learn a lot about LangGraph and actually implementing agents in this video. So the general idea of an agent is something that can perceive its environment and can also act on its environment. And the way that language models do this is through tools. And you've seen this, like when you're using the ChatGPT interface, when you ask a certain question, like for recent data, it used to just say, oh, I was only trained up until X date, I don't know that. But now it triggers a tool call where it will search the web based on your query, and it'll use the sort of information that it gets from searching the web in the context in order to provide an answer. And this agent that we're building today is going to work in the exact same way. And we're actually going to be able to see sort of the thought process as it does these tool calls and what sort of things that we type are going to trigger these tool calls. It's all really cool, and it's kind of like a different way of thinking about language models when you start using tools like LangGraph and start building agent architectures. Now, the basic architecture we're using is something called React, which is like a reactive agent. Let me talk a little bit about that. So the idea of React architecture in language models is we're combining reasoning and acting. And there's this paper called React Synergizing Reasoning and Acting in Language Models. And this is a paper from 2023. So here's the paper that, to my understanding, introduces the React framework for agents. The idea in general with agent workflows is that we want a structured process where the AI agent can autonomously perform the right action depending on the input that it's receiving at each step. And so these workflows can be very dynamic, like we can sort of hop around to different areas, and it very much can look like a graph, what the agent workflow might look like, where it's in different parts of the graph at different times. So we're going to get to LangGraph and the ideas there later. But first I want to focus on this idea of React framework, the idea of reasoning and then acting. So let me scroll down to a picture we can talk through a little bit. Definitely caught my eye. So as we look at this, I'm going to talk through the idea of React. So we want to, there's a reasoning step, and this is like the thinking. So we've seen that with this like chain of thought idea, or with the DeepSeek model, it has like an explicit thinking step like baked into the model. You can see that, you've probably seen that, but if you haven't, I have a video on Ollama and running DeepSeek locally with Ollama, and you can see it in the outputs there, how it's like thinking through what it's going to do. That is like a core tenet of this React principle. So there's the thinking step. The agent will engage in this sort of step-by-step reasoning process, and you can see this in the top right, how it's sort of sharing these thoughts on what it needs to do, and then it's acting. It has these kind of act steps. So that's the second step, is the acting, and this is like the use of tools. It's like invoking tools or APIs in order to get what it wants, and then it engages in this in an iterative type way. So here we're going to be using LangGraph, and as they're writing here, it's a library for building stateful multi-actor applications with LLMs. And this is like a newer thing than LangChain, and it's specifically designed for building agents, for powering production grade agents. And it has some really amazing tooling, for example, keeping track of the memory and how you might want to hook that up to a database, and as well this Langsmith for like being able to sort of do tracing in your agent when you get into like really, so it's really built for like big production scalable things. And so they have these these code snippets, and this is basically what I used, and we're going to be seeing this today, and we're going to be looking at this create React agent. But I'm also going to be showing you this low-level implementation, and we're going to be talking through what it looks like when you kind of go under the hood of this like pre-built model, because there's a lot of benefit in that, and you need to know this type of thing. You need to know this low-level implementation if you actually want to build useful things with LangGraph. Okay, so I've got a project here, and we're working in this Zazencode's Season 2 source AI scientific research agent. Link to this source code in the description. I've got this open up in NeoVim, and we're using Tmux, and I've also got a few tabs prepared so that we can sort of show what we're working on. The first thing is, don't attempt to publish papers using this tool. So I wanted to have some fun by creating like a research agent, but this is good for demonstration purposes, but I wouldn't want you to, I don't know, try and upload one of these papers to a publication company and sort of spam the world. So don't do that. But we're gonna talk through how to run this and what it looks like. Okay, so let's start by installing our virtual environment. So I'll go ahead and create that here, and we're gonna install all of these requirements. So we've got LangGraph, LangChain Anthropic, and so on. We're gonna see these in use. It uses Pydantic, which is super cool. I love Pydantic. I've got a sweet video on converting YAML to Pydantic because I really like it. So LangChain Olama, we're gonna be playing around with that. And then these are for our tools. I got PyPDF and PyLaTeX. We're gonna be creating a LaTeX document and using this agent to do that. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and activate this venv bin activate, and then what I'll do is pip install these requirements. And this is going really fast for me because all this stuff is cached on my system. The next step in setting up is going to be for our LaTeX support. So I've talked about this a lot, but I realize I haven't really explained it, and it's very easy to explain. So if I just go into here, I've got this, this is my Python library, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I want to show you the LaTeX dependency at this step while we're in the installing phase. And this tool is going to be running a sub-process like this on our computer right here. And so it's going to be calling this LaTeX MK. So we need to have this installed. And this is what's going to convert to create our research paper, which is like, you know, the result that we're going for. So if you type this into your terminal, it should find it. But if it doesn't find it, it means we've got a problem. It has to be installed. So let's go to the README, and on Mac, I can install this MacTeX No GUI program. And I'm just going to show you that. It's like this guy here. It's this homebrew formula. But yeah, the point is to like have a way of, you know, working with LaTeX files. And just down here, it says you must restart your terminal window for the installation of the tools to take effect. Alternatively, we can kind of run this helper command. So we might need that. Now it's already been installed, but I still don't see this working. So, okay, so here it is. So indeed, if I do open a new window like I did here, this should be working right here. All right, so yeah, so we're gonna be using this little utility in just a second. Alrighty, so that's the whole setup, and we're actually ready to run this thing right now. So let me quickly walk through the code that we're gonna be running, and that is in this file right here. It's called workflow_1, and we'll talk about workflow 2 in the next video. So for this workflow_1, why is this file gonna run? How are we gonna run this? Let me explain that first. So if I go to my README, we're going to say python-m sci research agent. And this is going to look for an entry point in this library. The library's sci research agent. The entry point is going to be this main.py file. And if I look at this right here, we have this main function here, which gets called right here when we run this -m command on this library. And it's going to be doing a few setup things. We're loading like our environment. We're making sure that we have an Anthropic API key so we can talk to our language model. We're setting up some logging, and then we're calling this run workflow. So up here, I'm importing that from workflow number 1. So I can go to the definition of that, and here we are in this file, this workflow_1. Now, the first thing you're obviously looking at is this initial prompt. This is basically the whole brains of our agent. It's the initial thing that I prompt the model with to let it know what's going on. But from there, it has autonomy to call the tools. That's really the key of these React agents, right? So here's where I'm using the initial prompt. I have some inputs, and I'm just like, stream those inputs. This is how you talk to a LangGraph model. You instantiate some sort of graph, and then you call graph.stream, and you feed data into it. We'll see how that works very shortly, but let me walk through this workflow from the top. The first thing I'm doing is instantiating my tools, and here I'm just passing functions to those tools itself. So let's look at read PDF, because that's just a really straightforward type of tool. I've created this in the PDF file. It's over here in the library. This is all on GitHub, so you can just go like look at this and use it or whatever. You got to understand that these tools, the names and the documentation are really important because this is passed as context to the model. So when I'm telling this graph, hey, you have access to this read PDF tool, it only knows what that means because of this documentation, including like the types and a URL. It kind of knows what a URL is. Okay, it's a string type, so it obviously knows this tool is expecting a URL. So when it has a URL that is a PDF, and when this situation is such that we need to read that, it's going to automatically call this tool. Okay, so that's one of the tools. I have a few others, which we will talk about later. And these tools get bundled up into our graph. So down here, when I create the React agent right here, that's where I pass the tools in. This is where they're being used. And let's look at the other inputs to that. We have a model and a check pointer. Check pointer, super straightforward. It's this memory saver thing. Not even really worth talking about at this step, although in the next video when I talk about workflow 2, I will talk about the check pointer because we kind of use a different state. We use like a custom state in that one. But for the purposes of this is not that interesting to us, but the model is. Let me come up to where I define that. So I'm using Anthropic's model, this Claude Sonnet model, but you can tell I've been playing around with some other ones, and it really is that simple. Like I could just literally switch this out, and now I'm using my Ollama local model. But we're going to use Anthropic right now because it's faster. So that's where I'm importing up here, and we just want to sort of get some quick results. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. But let's talk about the lower half of this code. This is the whole thing, by the way. This is the whole code that we're going to run. After we create our React agent, nothing's really happened. I'm going to show you an image of that, what it looks like. And then we're going to start talking to it. And this is where we call graph.stream. CI, like that. Okay, so we're passing in the inputs, which is this message list. Where I have some user message, and basically it's like that's my initial state. It's like if you just open a new ChatGPT window or Anthropic or whatever, and you just type in a big prompt. Well, that's all I'm doing right here, and we're just putting it through this print stream utility function, which you can see at the top here, just literally to print that output to the screen. And then we're starting like an interactive chat loop. And this is like the agent in action. So we are able to talk to it by typing input into our terminal, and then it will see that input and it will decide on what to do. And it might call some tools, or it might just give you a message back and allow us to respond again. And throughout all this, I've got this logging in place. And so we're going to see all of that. Cool. Okay, so let's do this. And in order to see the results of the logs, what I can do is attach to the tail of my logs file. So I have this logs research agent, and we're going to see the results of that. Here's just some stuff from the other day when I was testing it. And now we're going to run this thing. And I want to run this research agent here. So it's python-m and the name of the library. So at the bottom, we can already see some logs coming on, and this is the image that we wanted to print. Where we have we start our agent, which has access to tools. It might call a tool, and every time it does call a tool, the tool will respond back to the agent, and then at some point we'll end all this. All right, so it's talking to us. And by the way, let's have a look at these logs. It's saying you're an expert researcher, field of physics, mathematics, computer science, and so on. So this, what is this right here? Well, this is like a message that it's received. And then what has it done? It has made a call right here to Anthropic, and Anthropic has given us a reply. Okay, so now let's look at the top window, and I'm going to make this bigger so we can see what's going on. So here's this initial prompt, and it's interpreted as a human message that we have sent to the model. This is telling the agent what the whole deal is. It's a researcher. It's going to analyze some research, recent papers. But first, have a conversation with me, figure out what I'm interested in, and then go ahead and get that information and go ahead and write a paper. And I'm saying once it's completed, you should render it as a LaTeX PDF. Right. All right. So let's see what we got. So now that it responds, and it's going to help me find something interesting to research. It says quantum computing, mathematical model. It's giving me some ideas here. I'm going to say cold atomic gases. Yeah, let's see what it does about that. Whoa, okay, what happened here? So if I go down to my logs, we can see it's doing a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna hop back up. So it has started searching for papers. That's kind of crazy. So what happened? Well, it received this message, cold atomic gases, which was some user input. By the way, we are in this part of the graph right here. We had our initial prompt, and then we started this interactive loop. Okay, so that's where we are right now. And let me go back here. So we received a message called atomic gases. And then the very next thing that happened was an HTTP request, a post request to Anthropic. And it's just an API request. Like, this was what I sent, and we're including some context in there. And message received. Excellent choice. Blah, 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 blah. And what am I? Okay, look at this. So it's saying type tool use. And the name is archive search. So the model, like Anthropic, has an understanding that it has access to certain tools, and it's telling me now's the time to use one of these tools. And so the very next thing we get is our agent starts searching for papers using this archive tool. Let me quickly show you that. I'm just going to search archive. So this is the tool right here. I'll just go ahead and open it up. So it searches for recently uploaded archive papers, and just based on this documentation, like this information here, that's all that the agent really has to go off. And it knows that in this situation, it can use this tool to like figure out what we need. Now, the rest of this document here is actually implementing like an interface with the archive API. And it actually will pull some recent results based on some search query. It also parses that into like a JSON format so that we have some structured data that we can use. So that's something I built in order to show you this demonstration. Right, so it found 10 papers about cold atomic gases. So we immediately send another HTTP request to the Anthropic API, and then it sends us a response back. And it has the context from these papers. And it says, from these, I found one that's particularly interesting. Okay. And it actually wants to read that paper. So it went ahead and looked up the papers. It found one that it liked, and then it responded with a read PDF request for tool use. And so it all on its own, without me even telling it to do this, it went ahead and downloaded the PDF from this page, and it extracted that. And so let's go back to the PDF that I was showing you earlier, and see it's downloading PDF from URL, successfully downloaded. PDF has blah 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 pages, extracting from the page. So this is another module that I wrote, and this is the output from that module as it actually does this work and extracts this information from the PDF, and then it sort of just starts printing this out. Okay, so let's go back up, and I'm going to show you what this looks like from the user perspective. So let's see, what was I doing? Okay, so if I come all the way up, this is all the output from that PDF. It's all the text that it was able to parse. So the AI message, see how it's asking for a tool call like we talked through to read the PDF? This is all of the output from the result of the archive call. But I still haven't, this is just like reacting, right? It's thinking, it's reasoning about what it's seeing, and it's acting on that. And it's been doing all this on its own. So now let's see what it's prompted me with. Let's see the most recent output from this guy. And it says, okay, this is a fascinating paper, hydrodynamic attractors, ultra-cold quantum gases. It broke down some key findings. And now it's saying, here's some research directions. Okay, so this is the point of the tool, is to do some research for me. What do I like? Well, definitely not the experimental implementation, because I don't think a language model is going to be able to do a good experiment. Let's just go with this number one, with the non-linear regime. Okay, so we've received a response. It's saying that it's going to help me develop a research paper, and it's for whatever reason. For whatever reason, it's already triggering this render LaTeX PDF, which is not good, because we shouldn't be rendering any LaTeX at this point. There's nothing to read. Uh-oh, that's not good. So while this spins away in parallel, let me show you what's happening here. So what's happening right now is that it's trying to execute this render LaTeX PDF. If I go to this one, it's rendering LaTeX document to PDF, and it wants to have some LaTeX content, which is a string, and then it's going to create a PDF for that. And this is pretty cool. This is like the crowning achievement of this agent. It'll actually write a paper for us and save it as a PDF file on a computer. So that's that's what I wanted to show you in the demonstration. But like crucially, it can't start using this tool until it has a bunch of content to write. Like it was supposed to draft up the paper first and then try and write it. But here it's just like failing miserably because it keeps trying to call this tool, but it doesn't have proper LaTeX content in order to spit in. And what's crazy is that because this is in a loop, it's just like stuck as it continues to try this and continues to spend money trying this. And there's nothing I can do about it because as soon as I stop this, like the memory gets dumped. This is just like in the memory of the execution, like all of this context. And I can't do anything because like I haven't programmed, like an entry point into here. I haven't programmed any human feedback, which would have been really key at this point. So what we're going to do is stop it, and I'm just going to try this again. I wanted to quickly interrupt to talk about my AI engineering roadmap course. I've been developing this website for you, and I've got an update on the course. So these are the actual topics we're going to be covering. And within each of these, let's go to the agents one. I click in here. We've got a couple lessons about agents. So that's the general format, and inside of agent architectures, we're going to have all this information here. You could go ahead and like research this yourself without having purchased it, and just sort of go through and you can track your progress. I'm still kind of like working through all the little details to make this really nice learning experience for you, and making sure it's really good content that you're going to get a lot out of. We're just going to give it another shot and see if it does a better job this time. All right, so there's our agent. I'll get rid of that. And now it's giving me some more ideas. I want to do the same thing, so I'm still going to say quantum gases, and I'm going to say cold atoms. Let's see what it can do for me. Okay, so it's going ahead and looking up all the research, the recent research, that it can find based on that. Okay, so from recent papers, I've identified some interesting studies, and it's kind of like describing some of these studies. So there's some stuff, a bunch of stuff from 2024, and now it's asking me which paper that I want to examine more closely. So whereas before it immediately started looking for the PDF, now it's going to let me like pick something that I'm interested in. Let's do this mean field one. So Gibbs state of a mean field Bose gas. Let's grab that one. Now it is triggering the call to actually download that PDF. And so it's gone ahead and read that. And so now it's provided that as context, and the AI is going to kind of like reason about what to do with this. And I expect it to sort of summarize this paper and find some future research directions based on this paper. Okay, here we go. So it has analyzed the paper in detail. It's got some key findings, some results, and now it's going to be, okay, promising research directions. Extend this analysis to non-translation invariant systems, trap gases. Wow. This is like really detailed. Let's pick something very specific. I'm going to say systems at higher temperatures. Let's, can I do that? Oh, shoot. I just typed S. Oh, it did not like that. This request would exceed your organization's rate limit. Oh, God. Okay, so I've probably been spending a lot of money on Anthropic. Let's try switching this over to ChatGPT. So I'm gonna switch in here. We're gonna use GPT-4o Mini, and we're gonna make sure that's commented in. Okay, so now let's come back and we're going to run this with GPT. There's no LangChain OpenAI. That's weird. Let's make sure we have that. And I'm going to make sure I've added it as well to my requirements. Okay. All right, let's go back and we're going to try this again. Okay, so the idea is I got some problems with Anthropic, rate limiting. I guess I've used too much APIs. So let's go to OpenAI and maybe it'll perform better for me with my agent, what I'm trying to do. Cold, atomic, gases, but let's say something more specific even. What do you think? So the point of this agent for me was that, we could kind of talk and it could help me like figure out what I want to study, right? Okay, this is cool. Quantum phase transitions in cold atomic gases. Yes. Quantum phase transitions sounds awesome. Exclamation mark. Let's go. So, okay, so I'm curious what it's going to actually do as the search. So even though I wrote this, right, it's reasoned that what I actually care about is quantum phase transitions and cold atomic gases. So that's what it's put into the API search. That's sweet. So it did find a paper for me. It was published in, about 5 days ago. Okay, let's see what it does with that. So, okay, so spin oscillations of neutrinos, that's pretty cool. And then it's got a PDF link that's available in the results. Let's go for it. So we're gonna look at this paper. Now it's calling that, it's doing an archive search again, which is really weird. Did not expect it to do that. Okay, so it found some research papers. So I guess it kind of ignored that paper. That's weird. Okay, let's say let's go back to the first paper you found. Let's see about that. Let's see if it can handle that. Nice. Okay, so it looks like it did that. It grabbed the paper and it sort of figured it out as best it could. Notice how this like PDF reader that I'm using, it's doing the best it can with these equations, but I would not be confident that it has a good like understanding of how these equations are. Look at this. But in any case, so that's all in the context, and it's figured it out as best it can. It's got some key insights and whatnot, and it's given me some future research directions. Okay, let's do, yes, neutrino tomography of accretion disks. I just typed enter. Okay, good. Here we go. Okay, accretion disks. Wow. Yes, yes, I want this thing to write me a paper on this. This sounds fantastic. Oh, here we go. Uh-oh. Good news, bad news. It has done it. It has written me some LaTeX content, which I can tell is a decent LaTeX format. And it's called the tool. It's trying to render this. It's actively trying to render this. But there's a missing character. There's no T and null thought. Something's going wrong, basically. And so what's really cool is this error was provided to the model, and the agent is trying now to fix that error. So this is like triggering calls to Anthropic to try and figure out the error. And it looks like, maybe it's done that. It actually looks like it's done that. It seems there was an issue during the LaTeX compilation. Let me revise the LaTeX document and again ensure it's formatted correctly. So it does that. It looks different now, the content. And then it goes ahead and runs that tool. And it looks like it has... It looks like it's gone ahead and actually done this. And it's given me a message that's saying, okay, here's your paper. It's available. It's available for me. All right, so I've got this outputs folder, and this is where I expect it to be. So there's a bunch of stuff actually in here from, I guess, this is all quite recent. Like this is minutes ago. So I think these are like the failed versions as it was trying and failing. And then this is the good one. I think this is the real version. So, I'm pretty excited to see this. Okay. Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Let's go. So we've got an abstract and theoretical framework and methodology. This is definitely a lacking research paper, but I'm pretty psyched that we got this far. All right. And also we have the text file here, right? So we could go ahead and like edit this and whatever, build it out, a little bit more if we wanted to. Meanwhile, let's see what our tool's doing. Okay, so it's just waiting. It hasn't really done anything. That's great though. And these are the logs of where it created the LaTeX file for us. This is like, it was failing. It was calling it with the fails and it's saying something like, oh, it seems there was an issue, which I talked about, which I just think that's so cool how it can kind of like fix its own problems. That's like one of the most powerful things about the agents. And here it's created this file for us. That's awesome. I want to just quickly show you what this create React agent actually is. So I've got a window open over here, and it's the same directory where all this stuff is going, but I've got this virtual environment, right, Venv. So I can go into that, and I can open up the LangGraph site package. And this is going to show you the actual code, so I can search for it. So I'm going to fuzzy search for create React agent. Okay, here it is. Do you see this? So chat agent executor, it's in this pre-built folder, it's in this file, and so I can open that up. And let me just, I'm going to close my window so I can show you. So here it is. So chat agent executor from pre-built. By the way, if I look at init, do you see what is going on here? It's grabbed this create React agent out of this agent executor file, so that it's sort of like I can just access it through LangGraph.prebuilt. I'll just remind you what that looks like. See how I'm just accessing it through LangGraph.prebuilt? That's because this init file has, like, you know, sort of sourced it up from this folder. In any case, that's just a Python development thing. So here's the file. This is the actual file we're calling. So we need a model. And I like looking at this documentation sometimes because you can really see what do we actually need in here. Well, we need a model. Yeah, and it looks like we need tools. Like, there's no default for these things. If I don't pass this, then the React agent doesn't really know what its purpose is. Like, it needs those things. But from there, like, I don't need a prompt. I don't need a checkpointer, which I did provide, or these other things. Like, they're not necessary. And then we can kind of scroll down and see how this works. There's also a lot of really useful documentation. Which would be really useful for getting started with this. We're doing some stuff like this. Like, we do this stream inputs, and then I'm doing this message.prettyprint down here. But let me just keep coming down, and I'll just show you a little bit of how it works under the hood, but not too much. Because it's going to be really complicated with all these, like, arguments and options it has. But check it out here. See how it's creating a tool node? We're going to do this ourselves in part 2 of this video. I'm going to show you how to do this tool node. Okay, we're going to have our own state. So we're going to define our own type of state, and I'll be showing you that. And then there's kind of like, yeah, you can see how it's actually like creating these AI messages based on the response. Which is pretty cool. But anyway, that's the source code, and that is how create React agent is actually implemented in LangGraph. Okay, so that's where I'm going to end this one. Thank you for watching. If you have learned anything from this, and if you enjoyed my shot at creating an autonomous research agent, I'd appreciate it if you give me a like and consider subscribing so you can see more stuff like this coming up in your feed. And in fact, if you are still watching, then I think you'll enjoy the second part of this video. So I'm going to look at this workflow 2 that I've created, and it implements the exact same thing, except I really I do that implementation where it's like the low-level implementation from the documentation. So rather than just calling this create React agent, this pre-built thing, we're going to be looking into the sort of inner workings of that and showing, like, how to actually build things with LangGraph. This is key for building your own agent.